The 2023 NFL Draft has concluded. NFC, who are the winners? Who are the losers? We have draft grades next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On NFL Draft family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You know where you can find me at DP_NFL on Twitter. I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And as always, with me, my boy, my brother, Mr. Champ himself from LSU, Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code on Twitter. Keith, talk to him, baby.
Yes, sir. What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network. Yes, 2019 national champ. Yes, those LSU Tigers, man. But DP, while we're here, baby, we're here to continue to bring championship level content surrounding the NFL draft, right? It don't stop, DP. It continues. The draft is 24/7, every day, all day, man. But we're post draft, right? We're post-draft, and we had opportunity to grade the draft. So we coming up, man, we're going to go through and we're going to analyze each team in the NFC, right? Like go through, hand them out their grades, and we're going to kind of make decisions, right? Are these guys contenders, pretenders, hand out the grades, what we like, what we don't like, getting into it, man. But look, DP, we're going to start it off with the NFC East, man. We have to start off with the Philadelphia Eagles and talk about the rest of the teams in the NFC East. Where do you want to start with the Philadelphia Eagles?
First of all, my grade for the Philadelphia Eagles, man, I give them an A, Keith. I give them a straight up A. You came into this thing, you did exactly what you needed to do. Their best pick was Jalen Carter. At nine overall, they moved up one spot with the Chicago Bears. Why did Chicago trade out of that spot when Jalen Carter was on the board? Don't really know. But the fact of the matter is that Jalen Carter is a Philadelphia Eagle, and he was arguably, if not the best defensive player or just player in the draft, but he was the best defensive tackle. In my opinion, he has a higher ceiling than even a Will Anderson Jr. So getting him, he was the best pick. The pick that I don't even know if there's any picks that really left me scratching my head, Keith. I would say, okay, not scratching my head, but like the Tyler Steen one was interesting because just, I feel like they're preparing for Lane Johnson's departure whenever his contract's up and everything. And, we both like Tyler Steen. I feel like with Tyler Steen, like the shorter arms could be a little bit of an issue, but he has everything else that you want in the tackle. He has ideal height, weight, power, movement skills. So I don't hate that pick at all. Like I said, maybe you could have gotten a little later, but I don't really care. I don't really have a problem with any of their picks, even getting Tanner McKee in the 6th round. That's like a backup QB for Jalen Hurts. So, like I said, they get an A from me, Keith.
Yeah, I obviously give them an A, right? They continue to kill it. And, you talked about it, right? You said the Philadelphia Bulldogs, the Georgia Eagles, right? Like, it's just amazing, man, how they continue to just go to the same pipeline. It's almost what the Washington Commanders did, years ago, when they continued to draft the defensive lineman and, running back, right? They went so heavy with Alabama. So it's almost going to be a Alabama versus Georgia battle in the NFC East. So I like I said, man, you give them the best pick. I think their best pick, obviously, was Jalen Carter, him being able to fall to them. But I actually like the Tyler Steen pick, though, because I think this guy with a lot of potential that can play some high-level football. And you asked me the most questionable pick to me was Tanner McKee. I know they got him in the 6th round, but I still question from the perspective of he doesn't fit what they do, right? Like if Jalen Hurts goes down, then you have to restructure the entire offense if Tanner McKee is your backup quarterback. So that was my only issue with the Philadelphia Eagles was the Tanner McKee pick. But man, look, who do you want to go to next, man? We got the Dallas Cowboys, we have the Commanders, we have the Giants on deck. You know what? Let's go with the Giants, DP. The New York Giants, they in my opinion, they had a solid draft. I don't know if it was great. They had a couple questionable things. If I had to give them a grade, I would probably go with a C plus. I thought it was solid. You know what? I'll bump it up. I'll bump it up to a B. I think it was a solid B. I like Deonte Banks. I think their best pick was getting John Michael Schmitz, the best interior offensive lineman in this class, being able to get him and kind of solidify the interior of that offensive line. They have the two bookend tackles that they hope take the next step. And then the most questionable pick, I will probably say Jalen Hyatt, and not to knock him and kill him, right? But it's more so he's another smaller frame guy in this receiver core that already has smaller guys. I thought they would have attacked some bigger frame guys, bigger wide receivers like a Cedric Tillman, Xavier Hutchinson, wide receivers like that. So that was probably my two things. Like I said, I give them a B. I was going C+, but I'm going to give them a B because I like the top half of the draft. And then that was my most questionable in the pick I like.
Yeah, no, I'm in lockstep with you. B is where I was leaning as well. The John Michael Schmitz pick in the second round. I love getting Deonte Banks in round 1, but I think what makes the Jalen Hyatt pick so, I guess, frustrating is that Cedric Tillman was the very next pick. He was selected right after Jalen Hyatt, and it's like you said, adding more size. Yes, I know you got Isaiah Hodgins, who was a kind of a breakout star for you last year. It came out of nowhere. After spending some time on the Bills practice squad, but also then getting Darren Waller via trade. So yeah, he's your kind of center / power forward, right? Like he could play that big man in the paint for you. But why not give him another big man, another running mate in the Cedric Tillman who could play on the outside and really, like my phrase, make him cover every blade of grass. And don't get it twisted, with a Jalen Hyatt, you're gonna cover every blade of grass. But I would like for a quarterback like Daniel Jones, I feel like a Cedric Tillman is better for him. A guy that can erase those kind of accuracy issues.
Aaron throws,
Right, yeah, Aaron throws, especially on the outside. The body control, can play above the rim, the back shoulder fades. I feel like that would have been better because I don't know. Yeah, they're going to run the ball with Saquon and everything, Keith, but I do have some concern in terms of are they going to be able to really maximize Jalen Hyatt? Because I don't know, outside of like maybe Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid, I don't know how many OCs. Don't get me wrong, Brian Daboll is one of the best, but I just think for Jalen Hyatt to be maximized, it's going to take some unconventional stuff, similar to what we saw down in Tennessee with Josh Heupel.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. So they did solid, right? But there was still a couple things that you question with their draft, but it should be enough to propel them forward. I feel like they should be able to take steps forward with this draft, man. So next up, DP, we have the Washington Commanders, right? Our guy Ryan Fowler, he was sweating bullets up there. They decided to go heavy with early on with corners, right? Corners, DBs. They went Emmanuel Forbes, a playmaker. Then they went Quad Martin, a guy that plays that slot safety corner role, versatile defensive back, and I appreciated it. I think because they needed to add team speed on the back end, right? Like they needed some more versatility. But the back end of their draft, there were names that I thought were okay. I didn't necessarily love the Chris Rodriguez and Brian Robinson. I think that's almost redundant, and Chris Rodriguez is probably a lesser version of Brian Robinson, in my opinion. So if I had to give them, I would give them a C+. Like I think they didn't lose, right, but they didn't necessarily win the draft either. So I would give them a C+. I think the best pick is there. I think let's say this, the most surprising pick will be Quad Martin because that's the name that people don't know. That second round pick, he'll come in there. I think that's the pick that'll end up being really good for them that came out of nowhere. And then if you ask me the most questionable pick, it'll obviously be the Chris Rodriguez pick because like I said, I think it's redundant. They could have got aggressive like the Giants did and went after Eric Gray. And I thought that would have been a nice 1-2 punch for them.
No, I'm with you. I'm gonna give them a little bit more just because of some of the players I do like today and how they structure their draft. I give them a B-, Keith. Getting Emmanuel Forbes at 16, I loved. Jartavius Quad Martin was a good pick. Like I said, it kind of caught our guy Fowler off guard when the pick came in because he's like, man, we got safeties. I'm like, nah, he's probably gonna play more of a nickel corner type of role, kind of hybrid. Give you more flexibility in the back end. I really like the Ricky Stromberg pick to improve that center position and give Chase Roulier a battle in camp, right? Especially for a team that wants to run the ball, and Stromberg come from that run heavy offense in Arkansas. But the pick that I really love, in terms of value where he was drafted and then what it could mean for them long term was KJ Henry from Clemson, right? Getting the edge rusher, especially not picking up Chase Young's 5th-year option, Keith. I think that says a lot. And like I said, the pick that I just did not get down with was the Chris Rodriguez pick. I felt like that running back room needed some more juice. J.D. McKissic's not there anymore. Yes, you have Antonio Gibson, AG, but are you really gonna like buy into building him up as that pass catching, that explosive back out of the backfield, Eric Gray or someone, just more juice, man. Get more speed. Get more speed. I just don't see. Chris Rodriguez is a slow plodding back. He may be maybe similar to Tyler Algier, who we just saw the Atlanta Falcons said, "Screw it, we're going to draft a running back at 8 and replace you." You know what I mean? So I just didn't understand that pick at all. But I give him a B minus. I give him a B minus. I like some of the stuff they did. I give him a B minus.
Okay, well that's solid. That's solid. Look, we got to finish up with those Dallas Cowboys, man. The Dallas Cowboys. They did a Dallas Cowboys-esque draft, right? I think the Dallas Cowboys, either one or two things. Like they're overly aggressive and then they're like extremely conservative. That's how I feel, right? Like I don't think they press the right buttons when like just being mildly aggressive, right? They either
Right.
over the top or it's a real passive approach. And I think this was more of a passive approach, like especially if you're trying to take that next step. So going Mozzie Smith, everyone knows I like Loon Schoonmaker. I think that's their best pick. If you ask me, Luke Schoonmaker, I think he's gonna be an instant difference maker in this offense. Then you ask me to look at something that didn't make sense. I would probably say Deuce Vaughn from the perspective of you have a running back already, right? In Pollard, that's going to be your slasher. And we always talked about they need a complementary piece as far as a running back. So I don't think Deuce is a complimentary piece to them, right? Like, and I love the
Yeah.
story, love the kid, think he has potential, can play football in the NFL. I just don't know if it necessarily add up. So I give them a C plus also. I think I'm being a tough grader, but it is what it is. I give them a C plus. They address the interior defensive line with Mozzie Smith in the first round, but I like the Luke Schoonmaker pick. I think that's a guy that's going to have instant impact in his offense.
Yeah, I give him a C plus myself. Keith, the only thing for me is I honestly would have swapped pick 2 and 3 in terms of where they were drafted. I like Luke Schoonmaker as well, but I feel like DeMarvin Overshown has a higher upside as a player, and then that I just love that pick for what that means for dropping Micah back down is more and more towards the edge. You know what I mean? I absolutely love that for their defense. You know what I mean? And then they went and got Fahoko Velami Fahoko Jr. I think I pronounced that right, from San Jose State. High motor, high octane guy who knows how to get after the passer. Um, but yeah, the Deuce Vaughn one definitely was kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. Because like you said, you don't have a big body to complement Tony Pollard. And it's like that's what you would have assumed that you would have went with. But they didn't go that direction. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure there's some big body free agents out there. Tavion Thomas out of Utah is probably available, and even some veterans that they can go and bring in. But if they do that and then use Deuce as potentially a returner and kind of a scat back, a pass catcher, get his speed and quickness in space, it could work out for him. But yeah, it was an interesting draft. I give him a C plus. I almost gave him a C, but they did solid. They did all right.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Look, so that wraps up the NFC East, man. But you know what we got to go to, man? We got to transition to the Kings of the North, man. We're going to talk about the NFC North. They had some teams who had fairly good picks, right? And some that I was scratching my head, like, what the hell are we doing, man, throughout this entire draft? So coming up next, man, we're getting into that NFC North handout grades, talk about the best picks, questionable picks, and just the entire draft for them.
Guys, if you're looking for a delicious snack and you don't want all the sugar and calories and you need to try the best tasting protein bar ever, that's Built Bar. You got to try this stuff. You won't regret it. If you're like me, you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just a thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing. The reason why, they're made out of 100% real dark chocolate. That's right. They're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. You can get unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, and my favorite, cookies and cream. I still have a few left from the trip from Kansas City for the draft. So tap into it. It's only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. So guys, you can go to your local Walmart. You can go to your local Sam's Club, or you can go to builtbar.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON15 and you can get 15% off your next order. The Kings of the North, Keith.
Yeah, Kings of the North, baby. Let's start with those Green Bay Packers. The Packers get A plus, right? 2 pluses, man. They killed the entire draft. Man, I'm gonna be quick with this, right? They started off as Lucas Van Ness as their first round, which I thought I had question marks. I'm like, what are the Packers doing, man? But they continue to just go, they thrive, they killed this draft, man. And if I had to pick, I wouldn't even say my best pick, right? Because everyone knows I like this was a Keith Sanchez pick. I mean, draft. Like this, outside of Lucas Van Ness, this was like almost all my guys. So if I had to pick, maybe I don't know. I'm gonna go two, right? Luke Musgrave, the tight end from Oregon State, and then I have to go with Kobe Wooden, the interior defensive lineman. I would venture to say that he could potentially be better than Lucas Van Ness, their first round pick. Questionable picks, right? I don't see any questionable picks. The only question is, because they hit on all of their wide receiver picks, is what wide receiver are they cutting, right? Like that's the thing, man. Because man, getting Dontavian Wicks, right, when they was able to pick him up in the 5th round, and then the swing back and get Grant DeBose, right, a Senior Bowl guy in round 7. I see both of those guys making this roster. So the only question is what wide receiver are they cutting, because they killed it in this draft.
100%, Keith, and I'll pick out two of my favorite out of their draft. I love their entire draft, but for me it was you mentioned my boy Kobe Woods, so I'm not going to double down there, even though I love him and that's one of my guys. But Jaden Reed in the second, and then getting also another one of my guys at corner, Carrington Valentine in the 7th round. Keith, a highly athletic young man who I think with Jair Alexander being there, he's very, to me, in terms of style and athleticism and everything, is very similar. He's just much more raw because he only played 3 years at corner. I think Jair could be a big help for this young man taking the step if he's able to make this roster, because they need some more. They do need cornerback help. The one pick I will say that left me scratching my head and I feel like it was useless was round 5 picking Sean Clifford. Like, I mean, he was one of the. Be honest, he's one of the worst quarterbacks I ever watched. Like, truthfully, like it was very. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that. This kid was rough on tape. And to give him the 5th, like you got Grant DeBose in the 7th, you could have swapped those. You could have got Clifford in the 7th. You probably could have got Clifford after the draft, but man, like you said, A++, man. Whoever's on the roster outside of Christian Watson, I think at receiver, better come to camp ready to fight. That's the only thing I can take. Come to camp ready to battle, man.
Nah, I agree, man. So let's transition to the monsters of the midway. Talk about those Chicago Bears, man. And I give the Chicago Bears a B-, because I think, like I say, they tried. That's how I feel, right? Like they tried. They started off with Darnell Wright in the 1st round, drafted an offensive tackle, which this is a pick I agree with, right? And you're talking about, which ones we like the most. We're going to question, get Justin Fields more help, right? And help comes in playmakers, and it also comes along the offensive line, being able to protect them. So I totally agree with that pick. The questionable pick for me, DP, is Tyreek Stevenson in the 2nd round. This is a guy that I had a 4th round grade on. I like his upside as a player, right? But I thought there were inconsistencies there. And when you're drafting the guy in the 2nd round, he's going to be starting for you. I just didn't see the value in that pick in that position. So like I said, I give the Bears B-. They tried. I think they made good efforts with Justin Fields, and those are the pick that I like and the pick that I had the most questions about.
No, I give him so you gave him a B-, you said?
Yeah.
I get a C+ for me. Like I really wasn't rocking with this draft much at all. Too. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I, as much as I love Darnell Wright, and I met Tyreek Stevenson, really like his upside and love the kid. He's got the right attitude. He's made up of the right stuff. You know what I mean? But it started for me in round 1. Jalen Carter staring you in the face, and unless you just really you don't trust that he's going to work out in your city, you know what I mean? Like you feel like there's they're off the field stuff. Like
that had to be what it was, because you could tell that interior defensive line was a need, right? Because they went back-to-back interior defensive linemen with Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter.
And that's what frustrates the life out of me, Keith, because you pick two toolsy but highly inconsistent, highly inefficient D tackles in college, when the best D tackle by far was staring you right in the face at 9, and you traded back. And great, I like Darnell Wright. This was a little high for me, but I like Darnell Wright. But getting Gervon and Zach Pickens, those two were probably the 2 questionable picks for me, because it's just like you're betting on your coaching staff getting the best out of them and unlocking them from a mental standpoint to be consistent, because we know consistency a lot of times is a mental thing. So you're hoping that you can unlock that, Keith. But if you don't unlock that, C+. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna
All right.
see
Cool.
for
Well, look,
this.
let's transition to those Minnesota Vikings, man. We had the Vikings up in their first round, right? They went Jordan Addison. We talked about it so much on this podcast, linking him up with Justin
They were
Jefferson.
listening.
Yeah, they were listening, man. They definitely tapped in and they said, you know what, we're going to listen to those guys, man. Then they decided to go with Jordan Addison in the first round. So, but my favorite pick of this draft is Jay Ward because I think once you transition from Harrison Smith, you have Lewis Sign, you have Jay Ward out there, like even keeping Harrison Smith, right? Like you have such
Hmm.
versatility on the back end of their defense. And we just talked about the Green Bay Packers with how many wide receivers they have. So you're going to have to be able to stop the pass. I think in Jay Ward brings physicality. So I really like that pick. The most questionable pick for me with them is, and it's a round 7 pick, right? But I think you could have gotten more aggressive in the Dwayne McBride situation. I think he's a short yardage back, a thumper. But when you're talking about complementary pieces to Dalvin Cook, if that's what you were thinking, like I said, man, get more aggressive. You've seen running backs were flying off the board early, right? So it was time to just go ahead and get your guy. So that was my best pick. That was the most questionable pick. Give the Minnesota Vikings, looking at it, it's a C for me. I think they did okay.
Yeah, I'm around average with the C as well. Like I said, they listened about the Jordan Addison pick. The Mekhi Blackman, I think Keely Ringo was on the board. I feel like there were better corners available than Mekhi. That's the pick that kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. But I do agree about the Dwayne McBride pick. Just because at the end of the day, and then there's been talk to them trading or cutting Dalvin Cook, Keith. So if that's the case, so it's Alexander Madison and Dwayne McBride. If so, I'm out on that backfield. I'm completely out. So, just I need some more. You don't lose a explosive back like Dalvin Cook and replace him with more of a between the tackles thumper. I just don't see it.
Yeah, all right, cool. Look, we about to transition to those Detroit Lions, DP, and a team with a lot of momentum, right? People are trying to get excited about, and they started all swinging, man. So you know me, DP. I've been a running back guy for this entire draft. Them getting ultra aggressive, going Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. It's actually my favorite pick. I like it. Just go ahead, do it, and then I have a back. Can I have a backup favorite? My
Yeah,
backup favorite is Sam Laporta. Everyone
yeah.
knows Sam Laporta, Luke Schoonmaker. That was my 2 tight ends in this draft. I think they did really good picking him up in the second round. Questionable pick. I don't really see too many questions, DP. I would say this. I would have liked if they addressed the wide receiver position a lot earlier. No, Jameson Williams is going to be out, right? So that would be my question: is why didn't they address the wide receiver position? But if you ask me for a grade, I think it was just a solid B. They went after positions that aren't historically quote unquote premium positions, right? But I think they addressed it team needs, like getting a running back, getting Jack Campbell. So I give them a B, and that was my most favorite. I had 2 favorite picks from them, and then my most questionable thing was why didn't they address the wide receiver position with Jameson Williams?
Oh man, I give him a B minus. I like the collection of names, and when we look at the names and the talent, like, oh yeah, it's really good. But selecting Jack Campbell at pick 18, now he could prove me wrong and become an all pro. He'll become Brian Urlacher, Keith. But that's the only way I'm going to agree with this pick if he become Brian Urlacher. You know what I'm saying? Like at 18, man, like I feel like they moved back a few times. Gonzo was there.
Right.
Christian Gonzalez was there, right there, man. I just can't. I cannot. Like the linebackers came off. There was a late run, on day 2. You could have gotten. I really believe you could have gotten Jack Campbell in round 2. You know what I'm saying, Keith? Or, at the top of the second. And the Brian Branch pick, who's a really good player, athletically limited. And if you're going to play him at corner, I got concerns. He's got to be a nickel. He's not no actual
Yeah.
corner that you're throwing outside against Justin Jefferson.
Oh,
Or, you know what I mean? Things like, no, I'm not doing that. Or Christian Watson and think he's going to stay step for step. And nah, man. So I give him a B. What is it? B minus. Like I said, I like the collections of names. But that Jack Campbell pick, it just left a really, really wild like outlook for me because I'm just like, that was a reach.
yeah, it definitely was. But I thought it was interesting with the draft. They went Jack Campbell early, and then it
Yeah.
was a while before we seen another linebacker come off of the board. So maybe I don't know if there was a consensus and they
They
knew
out
that.
hustled themselves. They out
Yeah,
hustled themselves, in
maybe
my
that
opinion.
was right. They out hustled themselves, out thunk it, or maybe they knew the temperature in the room. I don't know. It confused me though for them to go Jack Campbell that early. But DP, man, we knocked out the NFC North, handing out grades, continue to hand out grades. Coming up next, man, we're gonna get into the NFC West and we're gonna talk the NFC South. So we're gonna go rapid fire on these last two divisions, handing out grades, talking about our best pick, talking about the most questionable picks, and handing out grades for these teams, see if they did good or how did they do throughout this entire draft.
All right, Keith. What we got? NFC
We we
South
starting
and
with
West.
now we're starting with the West, baby. We're going
Okay.
out west. So yeah, we're
Let's
going
do
out
it.
west, man. And we're gonna start with one of I think this is starting to be like a Dame team, man. The Seattle Seahawks. I think it's something about Seattle that you're starting to gravitate to over the past couple of years, and it may be their appreciation for running back. So I'm gonna start off, man. Obviously, they went Devin Weatherspoon in the first round, then they was able to pick up Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I would say Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably my favorite pick for this class, right? Just being able to get another slot wide receiver, pairing him up with a veteran quarterback, right? And then he has DK Metcalf out there. He has Tyler Lockett, so he doesn't have to have everything on his shoulders, man. So that's my best pick. Most questionable pick is Zach Charbonnet in the second round. And even if you just look at this draft, you could have drafted Kenny McIntosh in the 7th. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny McIntosh beats Zach Charbonnet out. Not saying that Zach isn't a good football player, but I think they're very comparable in what they offer you as football players. So that's my best pick. That's my most questionable. Looking at it, DP, but I have to give the Seattle Seahawks their credit, man. They did a hell of a job drafting, getting a guard like Anthony Bradford to continue to solidify this offensive line. I have to give them an A-. I think they did a damn good job in this draft.
They knocked out the park for the most part, Keith. A- for me as well. The Zach Charbonnet pick is a pick that left me kind of wondering what are we doing, because like you said, you drafted Kenny McIntosh in the 7th, but you also drafted Kenneth Walker last year in the 2nd, who was one of the best rookies, and I think he was almost rookie of the year for the offensive side of the ball, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't understand drafting another starting caliber back with the 21st pick in the 2nd round. But, Jackson Smith and Jigba, was, I'm not even going to say he was my favorite pick. Derek Hall is my favorite pick. Getting my guy, getting my dude from Auburn, man, getting some juice off that edge that he's going to help set the run on the edge and really help kind of corral the run game, especially with that wide zone that they deal with San Fran, Keith, and then getting Oluwatimi as more than likely their starting center. So I give him an A-. Like I said, the Zach Charbonnet is if I could take away one pick and make them do it over, it's the Zach Charbonnet pick. Like, pick something else. Like, you know what I mean?
I
but
agree.
A-.
Yeah, well, look, man, let's transition to those San Francisco 49ers, man. Looking at their class, they didn't have any first rounders or second rounders, so they had to, make do with what they had in with the 3rd round through the 7th round. I'm looking at the class, man. Most questionable pick has to be the kicker, Jake Moody, in the 3rd round, just because I don't like putting that type of pressure on the kickers, man, because we've seen time and time again when they get drafted that high, they have pressure on them, and it usually doesn't work out. And that's I'm going to say usually doesn't, but, there's still room for error, and you're talking about a 3rd round pick when you didn't have any 1st or 2nd round picks, so you needed those valuable picks. So that's my questionable pick. The pick that I like, if I'm looking at it, man, being able to get D Winters in the 6th round, I think is a really good situation for them. He can sit behind, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, learn how to play football. So, depending on what team, what situation, this is a guy that can play some nickel also. So he's a very versatile player. So D Winters is the pick that I like the most. Looking at it, I give them another C. I think I give them a C+. I think it's okay. I don't love it. I think it's an okay draft for them.
This is a clear C-, and I'm being nice. You know what I mean? This, just like you said, selecting the kicker top 100. Nah, that's outside of my realm of possibilities, Keith. But the pick that I really like especially for the value, was Darrell Luter from South Alabama, the corner, who I talked to you about. I watched the tape. I really like this kid's game. You know what I mean? Be able to play press man. I think he's better in press man than he is in zone, but he can play both. And, him and matter of fact, Robert Beal and D Winters, I think they got incredible value for a bunch of guys that can come in and play different roles for their defensive system, especially the defensive front with Beal and Winters. Yeah, the first 3 picks, I didn't really rock with it as much. They get a C-. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I feel like I didn't see a lot of your first 3 picks. I don't see difference makers. Like, Jake Moody better be what's my man from Baltimore? I don't forgot his name now.
Dustin Tucker.
Yeah, he better be Tucker. Because if he ain't Tucker, I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, man. Okay, look, we that was the San Francisco 49ers, man. But we, you know where we're going, DP? We're going to your part of your neck of the woods, man. We're going to those Arizona Cardinals, man, looking at their draft. That's where we're gonna check them out. They started off right with the splash of trading out of the number 3 pick, then
Hmm.
trading back up to get Paris Johnson. They went Paris Johnson, BJ Ojolari, Garrett Williams. So looking at this draft, man, I'll tell you my favorite pick from them, draft steal, right? You talk about a steal, that's in round 6, being able to get Keitrell Clark, cornerback from Louisville. I think this is a guy that's going to start. This guy's going to contribute. This guy's going to play a long time in the NFL. So that's my most, I guess you quote, my favorite pick, right? Them being able to get him. The most questionable pick, man, is I would say is BJ Ojolari. And not that I question the player, but I question the situation. If you're going to have a 4-down front, right, you're going to get the same results that you got out of him at LSU, to where there was question marks against the run, things like that. He wasn't being able to use to the best of his ability. And you have Myjai Sanders also, who is kind of the same mode, right? Like a speed rusher. So that was the most questionable pick, because I'm like, okay, how are y'all going to use BJ Ojolari? Looking at their draft, I think they recovered a little bit, right? To where I feel like I could give them a C+, which is good for the Cardinals, right? They didn't hurt themselves. It was a kind of a win type of, situation for them with this draft.
Keith, I agree with you. I give him a B minus, but I think if guys stay healthy, this could be a B plus type of draft. Just because, like I said, if you use BJ Ojolari, who I like the player, but you got to use him correctly in this 4-man front. I really like the pickup of Michael Wilson, getting some size in that receiver room. You know what I mean, and especially the Keitrell Clark pick, Keith. My favorite pick was Garrett Williams. I think he's coming back off the ACL, but this was a
Yeah.
guy that's really really talented in terms of coverage ability. I think he could step right on the outside, and him and Keitrell both can move around inside and out and really give you some coverage flexibility, man. Then two guys who play with kind of dog mentalities, right? And I love that because they need that type of energy in the secondary and in the defense. So I give them a B minus, but I think this could potentially become a B plus if everything works out. These guys stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I could see it from that perspective. Look, we finna wrap up the NFC West, man. We're gonna go to the Los Angeles Rams, DP. The Rams didn't have a first round again, right? Like that's a common theme for them. They went all in to win a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl, right? And we're gonna start this off with the very top of the draft, man, going Steve Avila in the second round. Then they drafted your guys. I pretty much know where this is gonna go. And it's probably gonna be the same for both of us. Most questionable pick, Stetson Bennett, right? Go and get him in the 4th round. I don't know what they're thinking with that situation. You're moving on from Matthew Stafford. I don't know if Stetson Bennett has the tools. I think if you wanted to get a quarterback, you had to go back and get aggressive, right? You're used to that. I would have rather seen a Dorian Thompson Robinson, right? Somebody with some type of potential upside there. And then, so that was my most questionable pick. My favorite pick, I would say this, man, just getting good value would probably be, it's tough, man. I'm going Byron Young, right? I'm gonna say that being able to snatch him in the 3rd round, because I had a first round grade on him. I really like Byron Young. I think you pair him up with Aaron Donald, he's gonna get some one-on-ones. That's a good situation.
No, I agree with you, Keith. My grade for them is going to be, I actually give them a B minus. I like the collection of talent that they had, and they understood that the edge was a position of need. Getting Byron Young in the 3rd, getting Nick Hampton, who I like as a DPR type of rusher in the 5th, then getting O'Shawn Mathis in the 6th. They addressed the edge position heavily in this draft, Keith, and I love that. But I also love this, getting Steve Avila, going against Steve Avila at 2, and then getting potential. One of my guys, a developmental guy, Warren McClendon Jr. out of Georgia, who I believe has the skill set to play both tackle and guard. But if you kick him down the guard, him and Avila could be two powerful, physical dudes that can move bodies off the offensive line. Main thing with Steve Avila is if he fits that zone scheme to a T. And of course, the worst pick that they made, I'm not even going to say the most questionable, the worst pick was Stetson Bennett in the 4th round, man. If you pick him in 6, Keith, I'm not tripping. But you pick him at 4th, you reach for this kid. Hey, I'm out. I'm out. I can't do it. I can't.
All right, man. Well, let's go rapid fire through this NFC South, man. Obviously we can start with the Carolina. We want to start with the Carolina Panthers.
No, no, we can start with the Panthers.
Let's start with the Panthers then, man. We're gonna start with the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, they went what? They went Bryce Young in the first round. They had the number 1 overall pick. They moved up. They got aggressive. Then they followed it up with Jonathan Mingo, DJ Johnson, Chandler Zavala. I would say this, man. C+ for me. I think it's still very average. I don't feel much better about Bryce going to the Carolina Panthers post-draft than I did pre-draft, right? I didn't see any weapons, and I told you this, right? Like, they put it all on Jonathan Mingo, and what you better hope is that Jonathan Mingo is not Laviska Shenault, right? And that's what you're hoping for. So I think it's solid. You got your franchise quarterback. I like Bryce Young, and he's holding the weight of this class. So like I said, I give it a C+. There was nothing else that was super flashy and not too many difference makers, I think, when you look at this draft.
Yeah, I give it a C+ as well. I like Jamie Robinson, one of my favorite picks. Especially for the value that they got, man. I actually love that young man in his game. Chandler Zavala, like you said, DJ Johnson was a reach to me. I think they reached massively for DJ Johnson. Even though they need an edge opposite of Brian Burns, I just did not see enough on tape to warrant this. For DJ Johnson. But like you said, I'm lockstep. I don't feel great about what Bryce Young is walking into, and they don't have a first-round pick next year either, Keith, to go get a Marvin Harrison or, one of these other talented receivers that should be selected in the first round of 2024 unless they make some moves and trade additional picks. And I just feel like it's getting dicey at that point. You know what I mean? And, I think C+ is right.
Yeah, so look, let's go to the Who Dat Nation, go with the New Orleans Saints, man. Looking at them, they went Brian Bresee in the first round, then they went edge rusher. So I had to get that out. Edge rusher Isaiah Foskey, then Kendre Miller. Man, my question mark. I have a lot of question marks, and so I'm gonna start with the grade. I almost give them a C-. I like Saints, and y'all. This is back-to-back years y'all have done this. Like y'all addressing position of needs, and I agree with the position of needs. I just don't agree with the players, man. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't. I just don't. Isaiah Foskey, Kendre Miller, Jake Hayner. I question all 3 of those. I honestly do. I think you will get some productivity, but in the slots that they selected them, right? Jake Hayner went in the 4th, could have been a 6th or 7th round. Kendre Miller went in the 3rd, could have been a 5th round. Isaiah Foskey went in the 2nd, the top of the 2nd. I would have drafted him in the 3rd round, and if I didn't get him, I would have been okay. So I question all 3 of those. My favorite pick, that's the question mark about this. I would go Nick Saldiveri, right? The interior offensive lineman for Old Dominion. Yes, that's how I feel about this draft, that I got to go to interior offensive lineman from Old Dominion as my favorite pick. And like I said, C-. C. Like, that's all I can say is CC.
I agree with you, though. I think my favorite pick, I think Brian Bresee, talent could be first round, but tape and everything else was second round, screamed second round to me. I think Foskey, I'm gonna say 2 of my favorite picks was Foskey in the 2nd, getting that another edge rusher who could play the run and you could continue to develop with his hands and hopefully develop, because you haven't done a great job of that with the past couple guys that you've drafted. And getting A.T. Perry in the 6th round, a big, long, ball catching, ball competitor at the receiver position that could work down the field, give you some stuff after the catch. I think that's good value for him, especially, with if Michael Thomas ever returns to form to being at least top 12 receiver. You don't got to be top 10, but top 12, top 15, and his offense can really be humming, but at least getting the back of it in terms of a big body. The pick I really, really, really struggle with was Kendre Miller in the 3rd. I felt like that was a guy you could get in the 5th. I think Tank Bigsby was a better player. There were better backs if you weren't going to address the running back position, but I do like Kendre Miller.
Yeah, okay, cool. Look, let's transition, DP. We're transitioning to the Atlanta Falcons, ATL, man. So started off, man, they said we're going running back in top 10 with Bijan Robinson. They followed that up with Matthew Bergeron. Looking at this draft, I think it's solid. Don't love it. I thought it was a commitment to a style that they're trying to do. They were very active in free agency, right? So I think they just tried to fill a couple more holes and just identify players they wanted and went that way. I'm going to go, obviously, my favorite pick, Bijan Robinson in the 1st round. I think that's easy, right? And then with the question mark pick, They're not really question. I think they drafted guys in appropriate areas, right? So I don't really have a question mark. Just where you're going to use Zach Harrison, because I'm not sure if they're going to transition from 3-4 to 4-3. And we know that, Zach Harrison is a long, lengthy guy. Just trying to see where he's going to fit in all of this.
Yeah, I give this draft a C minus. I absolutely did not like this draft. The best pick to me, of course, Bijan. But I love getting Clark Phillips in the fourth. You know what I mean? That corner, they need some help in the cornerback room. So I really like that pick and the value of what you got, where you got him, because he's highly competitive, great ball skills, great in coverage. He's just not he doesn't have all the size to play on the outside. But I rock with that pick. The questionable pick to me was Matthew Bergeron, Keith. I felt like they could have gone corner early. They could have still addressed the edge with a true edge. A Byron Young was available. You know what I mean? You could have gotten a Byron Young, or you could have gotten somebody else that could really win off the edge. We have not seen that from Zach Harrison. So again, you're hoping for the best. I'm not doing that. So C minus for the Atlanta Falcons. This screams like, I'm gonna say this, Keith, and people might take it as a hot take. We fast forward a year from now, there might be some changes in Atlanta. I just foresee it.
Yeah, you feel passionate about that. So look, DP, we're gonna finish up with the Tampa Bay Bucks, man, going through our NFC draft grades, right? Handing out draft grades. We're gonna finish with the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm sorry they went Kalijah Kancey in the first round, Cody Mott, Yaya Diaby. This is another C draft for me. Like I thought it was okay. I get drafting Kalijah Kancey with Vita Vea. If there's anywhere you want to put the smallest defensive lineman with the biggest defensive lineman, right? So putting with Vita Vea makes sense. So I would probably go. That's probably my favorite pick, and then the most questionable pick. Looking at it, I don't think it was any questions. I just think the player, probably Payne Durham. I don't know how much this guy's going to help you.
It's redundant.
That's my biggest question mark is Payne Durham. So it's another C draft I'd like. And if it sounds repetitive for the NFC South, because they did a lot of C things in my opinion. So I would give them a C.
I give him a C as well, Keith. The Kalijah Kancey pick grew on me, and I think understanding that my biggest thing was Will Levis has fallen. You have a issue at quarterback, right? Just take Will Levis. I felt like you could let him sit behind the two mid quarterbacks you already have in Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, and then he can take over at the end of the season. But they decided to go Kalijah Kancey. I'm gonna say I think this is a pick that's going to help against the Atlanta Falcons and pressure up the middle, right, with Vita Vea and Kalijah, but also against Bryce Young, because that's where he's going to need the most stability was on the interior offensive line. And I like the Servassier Dennis pick. Getting that linebacker who I think actually has a frame similar to a safety, and then also getting Yaya Diaby. So it's definitely a C, maybe C plus. I do like Cody Mott as well to continue to add talent to his offensive line. They just said we're punting on 2023 and we're going for Caleb or Drake May in 2024.
I agree, man. Well, that wraps up the NFC, man. We handed out draft grades. If you listen to the right, we don't really care for the NFC South, man. There was some winners, right? The Packers, the Eagles, the Seahawks. They did a damn good job. But then there was a lot of other teams sprinkled in there. They did some good things. We handed out some Bs. Hopefully, we wasn't too tough on the NFC.
Right.
Some of these teams, but there were a lot of question marks, man. Watching this draft in its entirety, that's we go. We handed out our grades, man. That's how we feel. We put it on wax. We said it. We talking to y'all. That's how we feel. We wait 2 to 3 years, and then y'all can question us about some of the things we like and dislike.
No, 100%, man. As always, we appreciate y'all for sticking with us through this entire draft cycle. But stick with us post-draft as well. We have a lot more content coming your way. Tomorrow's episode, we got the AFC draft grades where we kind of get into, maybe we get some more A's out of that group, and see how well they did. But as always, go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. We thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Thank y'all to all the everydayers. And if you're new, tap in and stay with us for Twitter. I'm sorry. You can find Keith on Twitter at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.